My name is Clara, and I am 28 years old. That day is etched in my memory as vividly as if it were yesterday. The day my body from the waist down became a silent, unfeeling stranger. The day my brother Leo stood over me, his laughter a cruel soundtrack to his prank, while I lay motionless on the hard concrete. The day my father's voice boomed, "Just walk it off! Stop being such a baby!" And my mother, her voice laced with accusation, blamed me. My father, Richard Harrison, was an imposing 6'2", a true monument to stoicism. He was a man who preached that showing any emotion was a contemptible sign of weakness. Raised by a stern military man, he was steeped in the belief that pain was merely weakness leaving the body. This toxic legacy he passed down to his children, especially his firstborn, Leo. "Clara, you need to be tougher," was the constant refrain of my childhood. It didn't matter if it was a scraped knee, the ache of a first heartbreak, or a genuine illness, his response was always the same: minimize, dismiss, and move on. My mother, Isabel, was no safe harbor. While she had her moments of maternal warmth, her ultimate allegiance was always to my father and Leo. She was a perpetually anxious woman, terrified of upsetting the fragile peace of our home. If acknowledging my pain threatened that delicate balance, she invariably chose denial. "Your brother would never make a fuss over something so trivial," she would often say, drawing comparisons that cut me deeper than any physical wound. And then there was Leo, my brother, 3 years my senior, now 31. All his life, he wore the crown of the golden child, the son who, in our parents' eyes, this toxic pattern repeated itself throughout our childhood and into our adult lives. Leo would torment me with pranks that were nothing short of cruel, and our parents would either turn a blind eye or blame me for provoking him. When I was 12, he locked me in the basement during a severe thunderstorm, knowing I was terrified of the dark. When I finally got out and told our parents, they accused me of making up stories for attention. At 16, he deliberately sabotaged my history project the night before it was due, causing me to fail the assignment. When I told our parents, they suggested I should have been more responsible and not left things to the last minute. By the time I became an adult, I had learned to keep my family at a safe distance. I left for college in another state at 18, returning home only for major holidays and mandatory family events. I built a life for myself as a graphic designer, found friends who genuinely cared about me, and started therapy to unpack the trauma of my upbringing. But family ties, as we know, are incredibly hard to sever completely. No matter how many boundaries I tried to set, a toxic mix of guilt and obligation always managed to pull me back into their orbit. That's why when my mother called and insisted I attend Leo's 31st birthday celebration, I reluctantly agreed. It had been 6 months since I'd last seen any of them, and a small, naive part of me hoped that time and distance might have somehow improved our relationship. "It would mean so much to your brother if you came," my mother said, though I highly doubted Leo gave my presence a second thought. "We're having a barbecue in the backyard, and your father just finished the new pool deck. Everyone will be there." Everyone, as I knew, meant Leo's circle of friends, most of whom were as arrogant and entitled as he was. The thought of spending an afternoon in their company made my stomach churn. But I had run out of excuses. "Fine, I'll be there," I conceded, the words tasting like regret. "Wonderful," she chirped, "and please try to dress nicely. You know how important appearances are to your father." The comment was a deliberate jab, and it hit its mark. My mother was well aware that I had recently embraced a more relaxed style, trading the parent-approved, preppy outfits for clothes I was actually comfortable in. It was a small act of rebellion, But in the Harrison household, even the slightest deviation from their expectations was treated as a major transgression. After hanging up, I tried to mentally prepare myself for the ordeal ahead. My plan was simple: arrive, engage in a few hours of superficial small talk, hand Leo a generic card with cash inside, and then politely excuse myself as soon as it was socially acceptable. I could handle one unpleasant afternoon if it bought me several more months of peace. What I could not possibly have known was that this birthday party would be the last time I would ever walk unassisted. That the casual cruelty that had defined my relationship with Leo for years would finally escalate to a point of no return. That my parents' ingrained refusal to take my pain seriously would cross the line from emotional neglect to criminal negligence. I packed an overnight bag, intending to stay at a hotel rather than in my childhood bedroom. Even that small boundary felt significant, a reminder that I was no longer under their roof or their control. I chose an outfit that I hoped would pass my father's critical inspection while still allowing me to feel like myself: dark blue jeans, a silk blouse, and comfortable flats. It was appropriate for a casual party, but not so formal that I felt like I was playing a role. As I drove the 2 hours to my parents' house, I practiced the coping techniques my therapist had taught me for dealing with difficult family situations: deep breathing, visualization, and reminding myself that I was now an adult with the power to leave if things became too unbearable. But no amount of therapy in the world could have prepared me for what awaited me at that party. No amount of deep breathing could prevent the catastrophe that was about to unfold, or heal the physical and emotional scars that would follow. I arrived at my parents' house at precisely 2 p.m., timing my entrance to coincide with the official start of the party. It was a calculated strategy to minimize any one-on-one interaction with my family. In a crowd, it would be easier to blend in, to avoid becoming the sole target of their attention. The driveway was already filled with cars, mostly expensive SUVs and sports cars belonging to Leo's friends. I recognized a few, including the sleek black BMW of his best friend, Mark, who had been a willing accomplice in tormenting me throughout our childhood. My mother greeted me at the door with a kiss that didn't quite land on my cheek, and a quick, appraising once-over that told me my outfit had passed inspection, albeit barely. "Clara, you made it. Everyone is out back. Your brother just finished opening his presents." Of course, they had started without waiting for all the guests to arrive. It was a subtle but clear reminder that my presence was not essential, merely tolerable. The living room was littered with expensive-looking wrapping paper, the aftermath of a clearly extravagant gift opening session. I spotted a new set of golf clubs, designer clothing, and what looked like the keys to a new vehicle. "We got him that motorcycle he's been wanting," my mother announced proudly, gesturing to a photograph of the bike perched atop one of the larger boxes. "Your father is having it delivered next week." I nodded, feeling that familiar, bitter sting of inequity. For my 28th birthday, 6 months earlier, they had sent me a gift card to a chain restaurant. The disparity was nothing new, but it still managed to hurt. I placed my own gift, a simple card with $200 inside, on the table with the others and followed my mother through the house to the backyard. The scene that greeted me was exactly what I had expected. About 30 people, mostly men in their early 30s, drinking beer and lounging around the newly constructed pool deck. My father was at the grill, playing the role of the consummate host, flipping burgers and steaks with the focused precision of a man who had perfected the art of suburban masculinity. Leo was holding court near the pool, surrounded by his usual entourage. He had a beer in one hand, and when he spotted me, he broke away from his group and approached with the kind of feigned enthusiasm one reserves for a distant relative you feel obligated to acknowledge. "Little sis, you decided to grace us with your presence after all." His words were superficially friendly, but the gleam in his eyes was anything but warm. He pulled me into a hug that was too tight, too aggressive, a physical assertion of the power dynamic that had defined our relationship for decades. "Happy birthday, Leo," I said, extricating myself from his embrace as quickly as possible. "The place looks amazing." "Dad spent a fortune on this new deck," he said, gesturing to the expansive wooden structure surrounding the in-ground pool. "Custom built, Brazilian apegle. Cost him nearly 20 grand. Again, the unspoken comparison hung heavy in the air. Our parents would spare no expense for Leo's comfort and status, while my needs and requests had always been treated as burdensome impositions. I excused myself to get a drink, opting for a bottle of water over alcohol. I knew from past experience that I needed to keep my wits about me in these situations. Alcohol would only dull my defenses and make me more vulnerable to their manipulation. For the next hour, I successfully managed to avoid direct interaction with my family by engaging in polite, shallow conversations with some of the other guests. There were a few wives and girlfriends present who seemed equally uncomfortable in the increasingly boisterous atmosphere, and we formed a small, quiet alliance of outsiders. But as the afternoon wore on and the alcohol flowed more freely, I could feel the energy of the party shifting. Leo and his friends grew louder, their behavior more obnoxious. They started reminiscing about their high school days, swapping stories that invariably involved humiliating someone they deemed beneath them. Eventually, and perhaps inevitably, Leo turned his attention to me. "Hey, remember that time we convinced Clara that old Mr. Henderson the golden retriever had rabies?" He called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. She was so scared she wouldn't go outside for a week. His friends roared with laughter, and I felt my cheeks burn with the familiar, potent cocktail of embarrassment and rage. I had been 8 years old when Leo and his friends convinced me that the sweet-natured Labrador next door had a deadly disease and was going to attack me. The fear had been terrifyingly real, as had the nightmares that hunted me for weeks. "What about the time we switched her conditioner with hair removal cream?" Mark added, slapping his knee, as if this act of cruelty was the height of comedic genius. That particular prank had happened when I was 14. I had been forced to wear hats to school for weeks while my hair grew back in uneven, patchy clumps. My parents had told me to stop being so dramatic. I took a deep breath and started to gather my things. I had reached my limit. No sense of familial obligation was worth subjecting myself to this kind of public humiliation. But as I turned to leave, Leo intercepted me. "Leaving so soon? The party's just getting started." His words were slurred, his eyes unfocused. He was drunk, which always made him more unpredictable, more dangerous. "I have a long drive home," I said firmly, trying to step around him, but Leo blocked my path. "Come on, sis, loosen up. Have a drink with us, for old time's sake." I knew this routine all too well, the forced camaraderie that would inevitably end in some form of public humiliation. I had fallen for it too many times in the past. "No thanks, Leo, I really need to go." His face hardened, the mask of feigned friendliness slipping away to reveal the cruelty that lay just beneath the surface. Still the same uptight Clara, some things never change. I turned away and headed toward the sliding glass door that led back into the house. I just needed to grab my purse from the living room, say a quick, informal goodbye to my parents, and I could escape this toxic environment. But fate, or more accurately, Leo's malice, had other plans. To reach the house, I had to cross a section of the new pool deck. The moment I stepped onto the wooden planks, I immediately sensed something was wrong. The surface beneath my flats felt unnaturally slick. I glanced down and noticed a faint sheen on the wood, almost imperceptible unless you were looking for it. In that split second, I knew what was about to happen, but it was already too late to stop it. My foot slid forward, violently and uncontrollably, throwing me off balance. I flailed my arms, trying to catch myself, but the slickness was too complete, too deliberate. My other foot shot out from under me, and I felt my body falling backward.
Time seemed to warp and slow down. I could see Leo and his friends watching, their faces a sickening mixture of anticipation and cruel amusement. I could see my father turning from the grill, my mother pausing in her conversation with another guest. And then came the impact. Not with the wooden deck as I had expected, but with the unforgiving concrete lip of the pool.
My lower back and head struck the concrete simultaneously, a double impact that sent an explosion of white-hot pain shooting up my spine and set off fireworks behind my eyes. I heard someone scream, and only later would I realize the sound had come from my own throat. The world tilted and spun, colors blurring into an indecipherable mess as my vision swam in and out of focus. When things finally stabilized, I was lying flat on my back, staring up at the clear, indifferent blue sky. The pain in my head was excruciating, but what terrified me more was what I couldn't feel. Anything below my waist. "Help!" I gasped, my voice barely audible, even to my own ears. The impact had knocked the wind out of me, and I was struggling to draw a proper breath. "Please, help me. I can't feel my legs." The first face that appeared in my field of vision was Leo's. He was looming over me, and to my absolute horror, he was smiling. "Nice pratfall, sis. Very dramatic." He turned to his friends. "She always was a theater kid." I tried to move, to sit up, but my body refused to cooperate. My arms worked, but when I attempted to shift my legs, there was nothing. No response, no sensation. Just a terrifying, empty void where the lower half of my body should have been. "I'm serious," I said, my voice stronger now, edged with rising panic. "Something is wrong. I can't move my legs. I think I hit my back on the concrete." Leo rolled his eyes, still convinced this was all some elaborate performance on my part. "Come." My father pushed through the onlookers, his face a mask of irritation. "What is going on here, Clara? Why are you on the ground?" "Dad," I sobbed, a wave of relief washing over me. Surely my father would take this seriously. "I slipped and fell. I hit my back on the edge of the pool. I can't feel my legs. I need to go to the hospital." I expected concern, a sense of urgency, immediate action. What I got instead was a dismissive snort. "For God's sake, Clara, the deck is perfectly safe. I just had it professionally installed." He gestured impatiently. "Walk it off. Stop being a baby. You're making a scene at your brother's party." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. Even now, when I was literally unable to move, my pain was being dismissed, my experience invalidated. "Richard, maybe we should help her up," my mother suggested, appearing at his side. But her concern was not for my well-being. "People are watching." "I can't get up," I repeated, my voice rising with desperation. "I need an ambulance. Please, Mom, Dad, I'm begging you. Something is seriously wrong." My mother knelt beside me, her voice lowered to an angry whisper. "Clara Harrison, that is enough. You have always been jealous of your brother's attention, but this is taking things too far. You are ruining his birthday party with this performance." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The pain in my back was intensifying, radiating out in nauseating waves that made it hard to think clearly. My head was throbbing where it had struck the concrete, and I was starting to feel sick to my stomach. "I think I'm going to be sick," I moaned, turning my head to the side. "She's probably drunk," I heard Leo say to someone. "Classic Clara, can't handle her alcohol." I hadn't had a single drink all day, but my father had already walked away, returning to the grill as if nothing was happening. My mother was making excuses to the guests, telling them I'd always been prone to episodes and that they should go on enjoying the party. Leo had lost interest entirely, moving back to his group of friends who were now loudly discussing plans to take the new motorcycle out the following weekend. I was alone, immobile, and in agony, surrounded by people who were actively choosing to ignore my suffering. The betrayal was a pain so deep and sharp, it eclipsed the physical agony. Then, from the edge of my fading consciousness, I heard a new voice, firm, authoritative, female. "Excuse me, I'm a nurse. Let me through, please." The crowd parted, and a woman I didn't recognize knelt beside me. She had kind eyes and capable hands that immediately went to my wrist, checking my pulse. "Hi there, I'm Rachel. I work in the ER at Mass General. Can you tell me your name?"
"Clara," I managed to say through chattering teeth. I was cold now, despite the summer heat. "Okay, Clara, I need you to stay very still. Can you tell me what happened?" I explained about the fall, the impact with the pool edge, and the immediate loss of sensation in my legs. Rachel's expression remained calm and professional, but I could see a flicker of deep concern in her eyes. She leaned closer and spoke quietly. "I'm gonna check a few things, but I don't want you to move at all, okay?" She gently pressed her fingers against various points on my legs, asking if I could feel the pressure. I couldn't. She asked me to wiggle my toes. Nothing happened. "I'm calling an ambulance," she announced, pulling out her phone. "She doesn't need an ambulance," my mother protested, suddenly reappearing. "She just needs to get up and stop making a fuss." Rachel fixed my mother with a level, unwavering stare. "Ma'am, your daughter has signs consistent with a spinal cord injury. Moving her could cause permanent damage. She needs emergency medical attention immediately." For the first time, a flicker of genuine fear crossed my mother's face. "A spinal cord injury? That's impossible. She just slipped." "Falls are one of the most common causes of spinal injuries," Rachel replied, her finger already dialing 911. "And from what I can see, she hit the concrete edge quite hard." As Rachel spoke with the emergency dispatcher, calmly and clearly describing my condition and location, I saw my father approaching. His expression had shifted from annoyance to apprehension. "What's all this about an ambulance?" he demanded. Rachel, still on the phone, held up a hand to silence him. After giving the dispatcher the necessary information, she turned to address my father. "Sir, your daughter has potentially suffered a serious spinal injury. The paramedics will be here in about 10 minutes. Until then, it is absolutely crucial that she not be moved." My father's face paled. For the first time, I think he was beginning to realize that this was not an act, not an attempt to steal attention or disrupt the party. This was real, and it was serious. "How did this happen?" he asked, looking around as if searching for someone else to blame. Through the fog of pain and fear, I managed to speak. "The deck was slippery, like it had oil or something on it." My father's eyes narrowed. "That's ridiculous. I just had it sealed yesterday. It shouldn't be slippery at all." But Rachel, ever observant, was already examining the wooden planks near where I had fallen. She touched the surface, then rubbed her fingers together. "This isn't water," she said, her voice hardening. "This feels like some kind of lubricant." All eyes turned to Leo, who had wandered back over to see what the commotion was about. His face, flushed from alcohol, suddenly drained of all color. "It was just a joke," he muttered, not meeting anyone's gaze. "Just a little prank. I put some of Dad's deck oil on a few boards. I thought she would just slip a little and maybe fall in the pool. I didn't think—" He trailed off, the horrific implications of his actions finally seeming to dawn on him. The silence that followed was deafening. In that moment, as I lay paralyzed on the ground,
I saw the unvarnished truth of my family reflected in their faces, the casual cruelty that had always defined our relationships, the willful blindness to the harm they caused, the reflexive, instinctual need to protect Leo at all costs. But this time, there would be consequences they couldn't ignore or explain away. In the distance, I could hear the approaching wail of sirens.